Good morning. So here I am in Upper St Jack's, and this is not to be confused with St Jack's or Courtauld St Jack's. And as we approach the lower part of the road, history tells us that on our left, in the grounds of the estate that became Montplaisir, was the chapel of St Jack's, and on our right, behind these houses, and at the time it would have been in the grounds of St Jack's House, would have been the cemetery belonging to said chapel. So let us continue along this road and let's see where we go from here. So apart from the history of the early Christian chapel of St Jack's, because in actual fact that was long gone by the 16th century, although it is considered to be Christian. So what we also have here is a pathway that will lead all the way through to Courtauld St Jack's, which is now a housing estate. And the estate of Montplaisir will be further down on the right. I'll wait till that car passes. And this is the property that was in the 18th century owned by Henri de Jersey, and he would have been the host of Jean de Quetterville, the Jerseyman who came over to be the first Methodist preacher on the island. And Jean de Quetterville fell in love with Henri's daughter Suzanne, and they subsequently married. It's a particularly busy and can be very noisy junction here. What was the Montplaisir estate at St Jack's. So what I'm going to try and do is capture this before the next onslaught of traffic. This is what I wanted to show you, and this is the John Wesley stone. So this commemorates where John Wesley actually arrived in the island in the late 1700s, I think it was 1786, and he stayed at the house of Henri de Jersey. And this is the stone that he preached from. So let's see if I can get across without losing my life. Get my buttons right. So there you go, the John Wesley stone. A riding block. Oh, it was 1787 in fact that he arrived. So I'm standing outside Victoria Tower and taking this view here. And of course this is currently our fire station in Guernsey, originally built for the Guernsey militia. It would have been the main arsenal. It's still known as the Arsenal Road and the Arsenal, and this would have been predominantly for the East Militia Regiment. Look, we've got a bit of activity going on in the fire station today. Anyway, getting back to this area, overlooking Candy Cemetery. It's a nice, bright but very crisp Monday morning here. And we can see here details about Victoria Tower, obviously named after Queen Victoria, and to commemorate her arrival in the island in 1846 with Prince Albert, but it was built in 1848. So it's a fabulous place to visit if you're in the islands. You can pop down to the Candy Museum, collect the key, agree to have no more than so many people in at a time, lock the door after you, climb to the very top and take in the stunning views around the whole island. So here we are in the Grange, which is ever so briefly quiet. There you go, there it goes again. And Haviland Street in particular. So this whole area around here in the Grange, Haviland Street, Sunray Street, Union Street, all became known as Newtown, or in actual fact La Ville Neuve. And it will feature in my new walk Old Town Newtown. So around about the end of the 18th century, in the 1790s, Peter de Haviland and two of his associates, one was John Orley and the other, excuse me, waiting for the traffic to pass, was Charles Smith. I'm just going to show you here, we're going to walk through Battle Lane. So Battle Lane referring to a very notorious and famous incident of 1372, I believe, in Guernsey, and we'll talk about that and how Owen, Prince of Wales, came and slaughtered people in the islands. Anyway, so I'm walking through here to the next road. So it was all part of a major development of St. Peter Port. Obviously, not just for the love of it, I'm sure there was financial gain as well. And this whole area was developed from fields into the Regency houses that we have today. So what was happening was that the rich merchants and privateers who'd previously lived in the high street and come up here to the gardens in the fields for their leisure, were now building their out-of-town houses. Now, of course, we all know them as townhouses. They possibly saw better days in the 20th century. They became multi-occupancy premises and such. But there's certainly been a lot of development since. And as we head down Union Street, we get to Sunray Street. And of course, a lot of these names would have been after the people who were instrumental in the development. But Peter de Haviland's got a very interesting history. It seems he was a lawyer, although he gave that up in 1777. And he had a dispute with the then bailiff, William le Marchant. And I've seen him referred to as despotic bailiff, and where fraud and forgery were listed as some of his accomplishments. So here we are in the very busy and noisy road of the Grange, but as you can see, we have quite a magnificent building here. It looks like a castle, but in actual fact it's a school. It's Elizabeth College, so named because money was donated from Queen Elizabeth I in 1563. Although to be fair, the first 250 years were quite uneventful and not necessarily very good in educational terms. The first headmaster, a Belgian, who was responsible for the translation of King James Bible, he actually left the island after writing to the Secretary of State saying that the islanders were not interested in learning, were no better than Turks. Do apologise to the Turks out there. Anyway, this building was designed by John Wilson, who came to the island at the beginning of the 19th century and designed a lot of quite iconic buildings in St. Peter Port and outside.